The ship hung in orbit above the blue planet, its silver hull reflecting the light of the distant star. Ambassador Valthari stood at the observation window and watched the world turn slowly below. Earth, the natives called it. Such a simple name for such a simple species. The preliminary assessment is complete, said Commander Keth, approaching from behind. His scales caught the light as he moved, each one a deep purple that showed his age and status. The results are exactly what we expected. Valthari did not turn from the window. Tell me. They are weak, Keth said, and there was something close to pity in his voice. Their skin is soft. They have no natural armor, no claws worth mentioning, no venom. Their eyes see only a narrow band of light. Their ears miss most frequencies. They live for less than a century, and they spend much of that time sleeping. And their technology? Primitive. They have only recently discovered space travel. Their weapons are crude. Their medicine is basic. They still die from diseases that we cured 10,000 years ago. Keth paused. I recommend Protectorate status. Class 7, perhaps. They will need our guidance and protection if they are to survive in the galaxy. Valthari finally turned from the window. His face showed nothing, but his mind was troubled. Something about this world bothered him, though he could not say what. Has xenobiologist Kessa completed her report? She has, Keth said, and his tone carried a hint of disapproval. Though I warn you, Ambassador, she has some unusual ideas. Kessa arrived an hour later. She was young by the standards of their people, her scales still bright blue with youth. She carried a data tablet pressed close to her chest like a shield. Tell me what you found, Valthari said. Kessa looked at Commander Keth, then back at the ambassador. Her grip on the tablet tightened. The humans are strange, she said. On the surface, everything Commander Keth reported is true. They are physically weak. Their senses are limited. Their lives are short. But when I looked deeper into their genetic code, I found something I have never seen before. Go on. Their genome is full of potential. Kessa pulled up a display on her tablet. Complex patterns of data filled the screen. There are vast sections of their genetic code that do nothing. Most species have some inactive genes, leftovers from evolution. But humans have far more than normal. And these inactive sections are not random noise. They are structured, organized, almost as if they were waiting. Waiting for what? Valthari asked. I do not know. But I found other things as well. Their neural pathways have redundancies that make no sense. Their cellular structure has capabilities that they do not use. Their immune system has responses to threats they have never encountered. Kessa met the ambassador's eyes. It is as if the humans are a machine that has not been turned on yet. A building with rooms that have never been opened. Commander Keth made a dismissive sound. Evolutionary detritus. Nothing more. Every species has leftover code from their development. Not like this, Kessa said, and there was steel in her voice now. I have studied 47 species. I have never seen anything like the human genome. They are not a finished product. They are still becoming something. Still becoming what? Valthari asked. Kessa was quiet for a long moment. I do not know. But I think we should not make assumptions about what the humans are capable of. They may surprise us. Commander Keth shook his head. With respect, xenobiologist, the Galactic Concord has evaluated thousands of species. We know how to classify civilizations. The humans are fragile. They are young. They need our protection, whether they know it or not. Valthari raised a hand for silence. He turned back to the window and looked down at the blue planet again. Somewhere down there, billions of these strange creatures lived their short lives, unaware that their fate was being decided in orbit above them. File the standard assessment, he said at last. Protectorate status, as Commander Keth recommends. Ambassador, Kessa began. But also file your minority report, xenobiologist. Let it be noted that you raise concerns. Velthari's voice was heavy. The Concord has procedures for a reason. We cannot change them based on speculation. Kessa's shoulders fell. Yes, Ambassador. After she left, Velthari remained at the window. The planet turned below, beautiful and blue and full of creatures who would soon learn they were not alone in the universe. Creatures who would be told they were weak and needed protection. Creatures who would be given no voice in their own future. Something in Velthari's chest felt tight. He thought of Kessa's words. Still becoming something. A machine not yet turned on. What if she was right? He pushed the thought away. The Concord knew what it was doing. The Concord was always right. But he did not leave the window for a long time, and when he finally did, he took one last look at Earth. The simple blue planet with its simple species. He wondered if they would ever know what might have been. 50 years had passed since first contact, and humanity had learned to live under the Concord's protection. It was not a kind lesson. Maria Chun stood at the window of Outpost Meridian and watched the stars. She was 53 years old, with gray in her hair and calluses on her hands from years of work in the maintenance bays. Earth had sent her here as part of the labor contingent, one of the thousands of humans who did the jobs that elder species found beneath them. Behind her, the alarm began to sound. Hollow signatures detected. The station's computer announced. All Concord personnel report to evacuation points. All Concord personnel report to evacuation points. Maria turned from the window. Around her, chaos was already spreading. She could see the syndicate workers rushing toward the docking bays, their scales flashing with fear colors. The Kelthrani were moving faster, their long legs carrying them in great bounds toward safety. No one was moving toward the human section. She found Captain Torres in the maintenance bay, already gathering the other humans. There were 47 of them on the station. Workers, technicians, cleaners. The people who kept Outpost Meridian running while the elder species took credit for its success. They are leaving us, Torres said. His voice was steady, but Maria could see the anger in his eyes. The last evac ship is already full. No room for humans, they say. Acceptable losses, said James Wright, the oldest of them at 61. That is what they call us. Acceptable losses. Maria looked around at her people. Some were scared. Some were angry. None of them were surprised. They had lived under Concord protection long enough to know what it meant. Then we fight, she said. Torres nodded. The Hollow will breach in less than an hour. We have no military weapons, no armor, no training for this. Then we learn fast. They had 18 days. The first wave of Hollow came through the breach like a black tide. Maria had never seen them before, except in images. They were wrong in a way that hurt to look at. Their bodies seemed to shift and flow, never quite solid, never quite real. They had too many limbs and not enough eyes, and they moved in ways that made her mind want to look away. She did not look away. The humans had built barriers from maintenance equipment. They had made weapons from tools and welding torches and anything else they could find. It was not enough. It could never be enough. But they fought anyway. In the first 3 days, they lost 11 people. Maria watched friends die. She watched James Wright, 61 years old, hold a breach point alone while 3 others escaped. She watched a young woman named Sarah Park throw herself at a hollow to buy time for the wounded to be moved. Something strange happened. On the 4th day, Maria had not slept more than 2 hours at a time since the siege began. Her body should have been failing. Every scientific study said humans needed rest, needed recovery time, needed food and water and peace to function. She had none of those things, but instead of getting weaker, She was getting stronger. She noticed it first in her reflexes. A hollow had lunged at her, and she had moved before she knew she was moving. Her body had reacted faster than thought. She had killed the creature with a maintenance blade before her conscious mind understood what was happening. Then she noticed it in her vision. The hollow were hard to see, hard to focus on. But after a week of fighting them, Maria could track their movements clearly. Her eyes had adapted to their strange forms. The other humans were changing too. Torres went 36 hours without sleep and emerged sharper than before. Wong, who had been badly wounded on day 5, healed faster than any doctor would have predicted. The youngest humans, barely into their 20s, seemed to be changing fastest of all. They were faster, stronger, more aware. This should not be possible, said Dr. Chun. No relation to Maria, who had served as the outpost's medical technician. Human biology does not work this way. We do not adapt this quickly. Maybe we do, Maria said. Maybe we always could. Maybe we just never had a reason before. On day 10, the hollow brought heavier forces. Creatures that towered over the humans, that shrugged off their makeshift weapons. That seemed impossible to kill. The humans killed them anyway. They learned. Every fight taught them something new. Every death showed them what not to do. They shared knowledge instantly, passed on discoveries without being asked. A technique that worked for one human spread to all of them within hours. They became a single organism of war, adapting faster than the hollow could respond. On day 15, the hollow stopped attacking. They pulled back to the breach point and waited, as if confused. They had never encountered prey that got better at killing them. On day 18, help arrived. The human ships came out of nowhere. They had not been authorized by the Concord. They had not been given permission. They had simply come because other humans needed them. 3 small vessels crewed by people who had broken every rule to reach this place. The hollow retreated. For the first time in recorded history, they left a battle before their enemy was destroyed. Kessa was old now. Her scales faded to a pale gray. But she was still a xenobiologist, and she still remembered her minority report from 50 years ago. She watched the footage from Outpost Meridian alone in her quarters. She watched humans do things that humans should not be able to do. She watched them change and grow and become something new. I was right, she whispered to herself. They were never weak. They were never meant for peacetime. She understood now what the human genome was waiting for. It was waiting for pressure, for danger, for a reason to wake up. The humans were not finished becoming whatever they were meant to be. And now, at last, they had started. The classified briefing room on Station Prime held the most powerful beings in the Concord. 300 species were represented there, each one ancient beyond human comprehension. They had mastered technologies that bent the laws of physics. They had conquered death itself, some of them, and they were afraid. The data is clear, said Chief Scientist Volmari, a descendant of the same family that had first evaluated Earth. The humans are evolving, not over generations, not over centuries. They are evolving in real time, within individual lifespans. The holographic display showed a human body, slowly rotating. Highlighted areas pulsed with red light. In the 3 years since the siege of Outpost Meridian, we have documented significant changes in human biology. Reaction times have increased by 40% across the general population. Cellular regeneration has accelerated. Disease resistance has improved dramatically. And most disturbing of all, Volmari paused, as if the next words were difficult to say. We have confirmed 12 cases of spontaneous psionic manifestation. Humans who can sense thoughts. Humans who can move objects without touching them. Humans who should not be able to do any of these things. The room erupted in noise. Representatives from 100 worlds spoke at once, their voices blending into a storm of fear and anger. Admiral Keth, grandson of the commander who had first recommended human protectorate status, raised his hand for silence. His scales had darkened with age, but his voice was still strong. How is this possible? Evolution requires generations. Tens of thousands of years, at minimum. How can a species change in a single lifetime? Kessa rose from her seat. She was the oldest being in the room now, her scales nearly white, her body kept alive by machines and medicine. But her mind was sharp as ever, because they were designed to. She said. The room went silent. 50 years ago, I filed a minority report on the human species. I noted that their genome contained vast amounts of apparently inactive code. Code that was too structured, too organized to be random. I suggested that humans were not a finished species, that they were still becoming something else. Kessa moved to the display and called up her old data, side by side with the new. What I did not understand then was the activation mechanism. Human DNA is not just waiting for evolution. It is waiting for pressure. Environmental stress triggers rapid genetic change. The more dangerous their situation, the faster they adapt. The hollow siege at Meridian was not a catastrophe for humanity. It was a catalyst. You are saying they evolve in response to threats? Admiral Keth's voice was cold. That is absurd. That is not how biology works. It is not how our biology works, Kessa corrected. But we have always known that humanity was strange. We simply refused to believe what the evidence told us. She turned to face the assembly. I have studied the human genome more deeply since Meridian. I understand it better now. Their DNA contains latent coding for capabilities that no current human possesses. Enhanced strength, expanded sensory perception, lifespans measured in centuries, and neural architectures that could support forms of cognition we have never imagined. Could support, Admiral Keth repeated. Not does support. Not yet. The awakening is gradual. The children born after Meridian are different from their parents. The children being born now are different still. Each generation advances further. In a century, perhaps two, humanity will be unrecognizable. They will be something new, something that has never existed in this galaxy before. The silence stretched. Representatives exchanged glances heavy with meaning. Finally, High Counselor Vesh spoke. Her species had been old when the Concord was young. Her voice carried the weight of millennia. What do you recommend, xenobiologist? Kessa took a long breath. I recommend we tell them. Tell them what? Everything. What they are becoming. The transformation is happening, whether they understand it or not. They deserve to know. And if they use that knowledge against us? Admiral Keth demanded. They already resent the Concord. They resent their protectorate status. If they learn they are becoming something powerful, they may decide they no longer need our protection. They may decide they no longer need us at all. That is possible, Kessa admitted. But consider the alternative. We can try to suppress their development. We can limit their exposure to danger, control their population, restrict their access to challenges that trigger adaptation. We can try to keep them weak. She let the words hang in the air. And when they discover what we have done, and they will discover it, they will never forgive us. We will have made an enemy of a species that may one day surpass us all. The debate continued for hours. In the end, no decision was made. The Concord was old, and old institutions moved slowly. They voted to study the situation further, to gather more data, to wait and see. Kessa left the chamber knowing that waiting was no longer an option on Earth. A child named Maya Torres, granddaughter of the captain who had led the defensive outpost, Meridian woke from a dream about stars she had never seen. She was 5 years old. She could hear her mother's thoughts. She did not tell anyone. Something in her, some new instinct, that her parents did not have told her to wait, to be patient, to let herself become whatever she was meant to be. Across human space, other children were having similar dreams. Other children were developing similar instincts. A generation was rising, different from any that had come before. They did not know yet what they were becoming. But deep in their cells, something ancient and patient was finally waking up. The pressure had come. The catalyst had been delivered. Humanity was unfinished no longer. 3 generations had passed since the siege of Outpost Meridian. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one had predicted. The Hollow had launched their final campaign. After millennia of slow expansion, consuming world after world, they had finally committed their full force. Every hive, every swarm, every nightmare creature from the dark spaces between stars had been called to a single purpose: the extinction of all other life. The elder races fell before them like grass before a fire. The Syndicate, with their ancient warships and proud military tradition, held out for 6 months. Then their homeworld burned, and the survivors scattered like leaves in a storm. The Kelthrani lasted longer, their psychic abilities giving them warning of attacks before they came. But even foresight could not save them from an enemy that did not stop, did not rest, did not hesitate. Their crystal cities went dark one by one. Species that had ruled the galaxy for 100,000 years sent desperate messages into the void. Help us. Save us. We are dying. And humanity answered. Admiral Maya Torres stood on the bridge of the HSS Awakening and watched the Hollow Armada through the view screen. She was 73 years old, but she looked no older than 40. The gray had left her family's hair 2 generations ago. All ships report ready, her tactical officer announced. His eyes glowed faintly blue, a sign of psionic development that would have seemed miraculous a century ago and now was merely common. The elder races have taken position behind our lines, as requested. Maya nodded. Behind her fleet, the remnants of the Concord had gathered. Broken ships crewed by broken peoples, survivors of a war they had been losing for decades. They had come because they had nowhere else to go. They had come because humanity had promised to protect them. The irony was not lost on Maya. Her grandmother had died at Outpost Meridian because the Concord considered humans acceptable losses. Now the Concord was hiding behind human ships, hoping for salvation. Open a channel to all vessels, Maya said. Her communications officer, a young woman who could transmit her thoughts, across light years closed her eyes and reached out. Every ship in the fleet, every soldier, every pilot felt the connection establish. This is Admiral Torres. The Hollow think today is the day they win. They think they have already beaten us. They think we are just another species to be consumed. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. Show them how wrong they are. The human fleet moved forward, and the universe held its breath. The battle lasted 6 days in the histories that would be written later. Scholars would struggle to describe what happened. They would use words like transcendent and unprecedented and impossible. They would note that human soldiers seemed to know where attacks would come before they were launched. They would record that human ships moved in perfect coordination, as if guided by a single mind. They would wonder at humans who healed from wounds that should have killed them, who fought without rest, who adapted to every tactic the Hollow attempted. But the scholars would miss the truth. The truth was simpler and stranger than they could understand. Humanity had finished becoming what it was meant to be, not a species of warriors, though they could fight. Not a species of psychics, though many had that gift. Not a species of immortals, though their lifespans now stretched toward centuries. They were a species designed to survive, to adapt, to overcome. Whatever the universe threw at them, their bodies and minds would change to meet it. They were living proof that evolution could be a choice, not just a process. The Hollow had never faced anything like them. The Hollow could not learn, could not change, could not grow. They were perfect predators, honed by millions of years of success. But perfection was a trap. It meant you had stopped becoming. Humanity had never stopped. On the sixth day, the Hollow retreated. Their swarms scattered into the dark spaces between galaxies, fleeing something they could not understand. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they had been defeated utterly. Maya Torres watched them go. She felt no triumph, only a strange sadness for the elder races who had doubted humanity, who had tried to protect and control them, who had never understood what they were looking at. The victory celebration was held on Station Prime, in the same briefing room where the Concord had once debated what to do about humanity. The few surviving members of the elder species gathered alongside human representatives. The mood was complicated gratitude, mixed with awe, mixed with fear. Kessa was there. She had lived far longer than any of her species should have, kept alive by human medicine that her people had never imagined. Her scales had lost all color now, pale as old bone. But her eyes were still bright, and her mind was still sharp. She approached Maya after the formal speeches were done. "You know," Kessa said, "I wrote a report about your species a long time ago. I said you were not weak, just unfinished." Maya smiled. "I know, my grandmother mentioned it. She said you were the only one who understood." I did not understand. Not really. I saw the potential in your genome, but I did not imagine this. Kessa gestured at the room, at the human admirals and diplomats and leaders who now held the fate of the galaxy in their hands. "I thought you might become stronger, faster, perhaps develop some new abilities. I did not think you would become this. What do you think we are now?" Kessa was quiet for a long moment. Her ancient eyes studied Maya's face as if searching for something. "I think you are what the universe needs," she said finally. "I think perhaps you always were. The elder races grew powerful and then stopped growing. We became comfortable. We forgot that the universe is not safe, that existence is not guaranteed. We needed you to remind us, or to save you." "Yes." Kessa's voice was soft. "Or to save us." Maya looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Hollow were still running. Somewhere out there, new challenges waited. New threats. New pressures that would push humanity further along the path it had been walking since that first evaluation ship hung in orbit above Earth. "We are still not finished," Maya said. "I can feel it. We are still becoming something. I do not know what we will be in another 100 years. Another 1,000. Does that frighten you?" Maya considered the question. The honest answer was complicated. There was fear in it, yes. But there was also hope. There was also wonder. "No," she said at last. "It gives me hope. For us. For everyone." She turned back to Kessa. "The universe is vast and full of dangers. Species that stop growing, stop changing, they die. The Hollow proved that. Maybe the greatest strength is not being powerful. Maybe it is being able to become whatever you need to be." Kessa nodded slowly. Her lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "Then perhaps we should all learn from humanity," she said. "Perhaps we should all remember how to become." Outside, the stars burned bright in the endless dark. And humanity looked up at them, not with fear, not with resignation, but with the simple certainty that whatever came next, they would be ready. They would adapt. They would grow. They would become. They always had.